We live on a magnificent planet. Multitudes of diverse landscapes, populated by a dizzying number of living species, each adapted to its unique place on the Earth. Humans have always drawn from nature as a source of artistic and literary inspiration. But don't be fooled. This beautiful world is in crisis.
There's no way I'm watching that ridiculous doomsday stuff. Don't they have anything good on TV anymore?
Ridiculous, sir. May I have a word with you?
Who are you?
Well, I am the narrator, of course, hence my disembodied voice and dramatic tone.
What? The narrator? From what? From that lame documentary I just tried to turn off? What do you want with me?
I would merely like to chat. I find your dismissal of my environmental message quite troubling.
Don't tell me you've started to believe those end of the world hoaxes. Those are all fake. The world is fine.
Hoaxes? You, sir, are misinformed.
Well, we still have trees and water, and even if anything were to happen to them, I could just get into my car and drive to somewhere that still has trees and water.
Oh, goodness. It appears you have much to learn, good sir. When it comes to the environment, there is much more than meets the eye.
Well, what's the problem then?
Allow me to ask you a question. Do you have any light bulbs in your house?
Yeah, a few. Alright, a bunch.
How are those light bulbs powered?
By the light switch. Well, I guess by electricity, actually.
Okay, that's a relief.
And your point?
You may not realize this, good sir, but using electricity is not without its consequences.
What's the worst that can happen?
When you turn on that light bulb, you become instantly connected to faraway lands and complicated systems.
That's an interesting concept, but you can't prove that.
Well, perhaps I can convince you.
Whoa, what is this place?
This is a coal mine in Appalachia. This place used to be a mountain about 10 years ago.
What happened? They must have moved mountains to get to where they are now. Sorry, that was bad.
If I had a face, I'd be cringing, sir.
Oh, sorry. But seriously, how does a mountain just disappear? And what about all the animals that lived on the mountain?
The animals are gone. Those that could escape have migrated to the surrounding areas. Many were not so lucky. The mountain disappeared as a result of human activity. Using giant earth-moving machines and explosives, the mountaintop was blasted to pieces in order to expose seams of coal buried beneath.
But what do all these disappearing mountains have to do with my light bulbs? Whoa, now where am I?
Take a good look around you, good sir. You stand in the midst of a major part of the crisis.
It's so loud in here. Is this some kind of a factory?
You might call it that. Indeed, it's much like a factory. In this case, the product is electricity. We call this type of factory a power plant, and it is the connection between your light bulb and the coal mine from before.
Well, how does coal turn into this electricity?
Observe. The coal is burned to heat water, which in turn creates steam and spins turbines which create electricity. The electricity is then shipped out to your home via power lines.
Whoa, that seems complicated. So the coal is burned and it produces electricity? How is that a problem?
Well, when coal is burned, heat is not the only byproduct. Burning coal also releases large amount of carbon dioxide, or CO2, as you can see coming from the smokestack.
I'm guessing that's bad.
Normally, there's nothing wrong with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's the same gas we breathe out when we exhale. The problem is that when we burn coal, we are releasing extra carbon dioxide that has been locked up underground for millions of years. Too much CO2 can, in this case, alter the Earth's climate dramatically. CO2 is a greenhouse gas. When atmospheric concentrations of CO2 increase, It acts like a heat-trapping blanket wrapped around the Earth, causing global temperatures to rise. If we add too much CO2 at a rapid rate, the effects could be rather dire.
But is electricity the only thing causing a large amount of CO2 in the atmosphere?
A very good question.
Whoa, weird. Everything looks sideways.
Some minor technical difficulties. My apologies, sir.
Your apologies? What's the big idea? Put my face back together.
Just a moment.
Thanks. You're enjoying this, aren't you?
I am but a dry narrator. I have no sense of humor.
Whatever you say. Now answer my question. Where else does CO2 come from?
In fact, anything requiring the combustion of fossil fuels will release extra CO2 into the air. Take driving your car, for example. Gasoline is also a fossil fuel, made from petroleum rather than coal. Just like coal, petroleum must be extracted from the ground, and burning it releases the buried CO2 into the sky.
Judging by what I hear from all this coal business, I'm assuming that oil extraction is pretty dirty as well.
Yes, drilling for oil involves a lot of risks, especially because oil is increasingly coming from offshore sources. Have you ever heard of the Exxon Valdez oil spill of 1989? Offshore oil spills can be very damaging.
So, oil spills in the water. Can't they filter it out?
It's very difficult. Oil floats on the water's surface and coats the feathers or scales of marine animals. Such spills can devastate coastal ecosystems and economies. Cleaning the oil effectively requires the use of more chemicals, which in many cases have unknown effects.
Wow, I didn't think of all the wildlife. But if electricity is bad, and oil is bad, how are we going to power the world? It seems that we're heading to our own disaster. Is there any way to stop it?
Now you are starting to understand the danger. Luckily, all hope is not lost.
But what can we possibly do?
Many problems, both the buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere and the pollution from oil extraction, can be avoided if we use alternatives to fossil fuels. Have you heard of renewable energy?
Renewable energy? Yeah, but I heard that it's expensive.
Did you know that the US government gives money to fossil fuel companies in order to make their energy cheaper? Fossil fuels receive more than twice as much government money than renewable energy companies do. And besides, given the serious effects of burning fossil fuels, we may not have a choice.
Well, why do they do that? Don't they know that fossil fuels are bad?
Our current economic system is heavily dependent on fossil fuels, so the government is likely to continue subsidizing fossil fuel energy until alternative sources have become more established.
Well, why don't they give some of the money to renewable energy so that they can get more established?
I think that sounds like a wonderful idea.
Okay, but hold on a second. I don't even know what renewable energy is.
My goodness, sir, you should have told me from the start.
Sorry, I just got so caught up in the cost. So what is renewable energy all about?
Allow me to explain. Renewable energy is a way of deriving power from sources that won't run out or cause major environmental damage. Fossil fuel is an example of a non-renewable resource. We have to dig it up out of the ground, and eventually there will be none left.
What will never run out though?
I'll give you a hint. Plants can make their own food, but they must have some source of energy for that. What kinds of resources do plants use?
Well, water.
Yes, and water is an example of a renewable energy resource. Humans can harness the power of water using hydroelectric power.
Whoa. But what about in places with no water?
Well, Think about the plant again. What else do they use?
Well, don't plants need light?
Yes, they do.
But how does that produce energy?
Each day, the sun radiates huge amounts of energy down to Earth. Plants absorb this energy using their leaves, and humans can absorb it using photovoltaic panels.
Sounds complicated.
It is complicated, but scientists are working every day to develop more effective technologies.
Are there any more sources?
Yes, there certainly are. Think about it.
Hmm. What could it be? Ah! Wow, this wind sure is powerful. Can wind be a source of power?
Indeed, it can. And you have experienced its power firsthand. Humans can harness wind power using wind turbines.
But it's not always windy.
True. And this is why we need to harness all of these forms of energy together.
And these things will never run out?
Well, technically, the sun will probably burn out in 5 billion years. But that's not really an immediate concern. The natural processes of sun, wind, and water are self-sustaining and will not run out for a very long time.
Wow, you're right. It's almost an infinite source of energy.
And the best part is, these energy sources do not emit CO2.
Well, it seems pretty obvious to me that we should use renewable energy sources. But if the government is still supporting the oil companies, what can be done? I'm just a single person, and I don't have the power to make a change.
Advocate. Let your government know that you want more support for renewable energy. Write letters. Participate in your democracy. You can even help by telling your friends.
I can, but that will still be very few people. There are like 300 million people in the US. I don't think it will matter, even if all my friends write letters.
If every friend told a few more of their friends, imagine how ideas would spread. Revolutionary ideas have to start somewhere.
You're right. I can make a change happen.